All right, we're following breaking news now. More than 1,100 former Justice Department prosecutors and other DOJ officials are calling on Attorney General William Barr to resign. The stunning development is in response to Barr's controversial decision to ask for shorter prison sentence for Roger Stone, a longtime Trump advisor. The officials, who served in both Republican and Democratic administrations, signed and released a rare statement today demanding Barr step down as the nation's top law enforcement official. David Shortell is a CNN crime and justice producer, and Tolu Olorunnipa is a White House reporter for The Washington Post and a CNN political analyst. Good to see both of you. All right, David, let me begin with you. What more can you tell us about this statement?
Letter really capping one of the most tumultuous weeks in recent Justice Department history, beginning on Tuesday when Attorney General William Barr and other senior leaders from the Justice Department engaged in this extraordinary public dispute with career attorneys who had recommended a stiff punishment for Roger Stone, the longtime friend of President Donald Trump, who was convicted last year of lying to Congress and witness tampering. On Wednesday, Barr attempting to diffuse the growing crisis a bit in an interview with ABC News, in which he said that the decision to soften the sentencing request on Stone was made without consultation from the White House. It was the Justice Department's decision, Barr said. He also, though, added this rare rebuke, this criticism of President Donald Trump, Barr telling ABC News that the president's tweets, his online commentary about the Justice Department, make his job impossible to do. Fred, we got a bit of a response from the White House to those criticisms this morning. Take a listen to Mark Short, the vice president's chief of staff, in an interview on CNN.
When prosecutors resign from the Trump Justice Department, the first instinct is probably to think this is just media hysteria. Everything is a crisis these days. The news screams about something, and 2 weeks later, nobody remembers it. But this is different. This is the actual institutional guardrails collapsing in real time. This story is being spun into so many different directions. Some people are saying it is a total hoax. Some people are saying Trump is a dictator. And the truth is way more interesting and way more complicated than either of those takes. Here is the real story. On January 13th, 2026, just a few days ago, at least 6 federal prosecutors in Minnesota literally resigned. 6 highly trained veteran prosecutors with years of experience submitted their resignations because the Trump Justice Department headquarters in Washington told them to do something they found unethical. They were ordered to investigate Renee Good's widow. And that is exactly the problem. This whole scandal is built on a case that hardly anyone is paying attention to. An ICE agent shot and killed a woman named Renee Good. Now, the Trump administration wants federal prosecutors to investigate the widow, not the shooting, not the agent, the widow. It is clear why prosecutors would walk out. They are being told to flip the script. They are being told to make the victim's family the target. And when they said no, when these 6 prosecutors said, we are not doing this, Trump's Justice Department told them basically, yeah, well, we are done with you. But here is where it gets bigger. At the exact same time, 5 senior lawyers in the DOJ Civil Rights Division, the division that is supposed to prosecute police misconduct, submitted early retirement paperwork. These are not low-level staffers. These are the veterans, the people who have been there for decades, the people who know how to actually do this job, and they are leaving. They are packing up and getting out. This is not just about one case in Minnesota. This is part of a massive coordinated pattern. Over 200 former DOJ employees, over 200 people who used to work in the Trump Justice Department signed an open letter just a couple months ago saying that Trump is running a coordinated effort to completely destroy civil rights enforcement. They are saying the Civil Rights Division has lost about 75% of its attorneys. 75%. That is not a resignation, that is a purge. And they are warning that more are coming. Imagine if 75% of the people who were supposed to investigate police violence, discrimination, and abuse of power just disappeared. That is the situation being observed. The thing that makes Trump enraged is that he cannot control this narrative. He is used to being able to fire people and have that be the end of it. But now people are walking out before they can be fired. They are speaking up publicly. They are signing letters. They are going on the record. A Reuters investigation found that nearly 2/3 of the entire DOJ unit that defends Trump policies in court has already quit or is planning to quit. 2/3. These lawyers are saying they were being pushed to defend policies they did not think were legal. They were being forced to make arguments they thought were ethically wrong, and they just left. This is the story everyone is missing because it is not flashy. It is not a scandal where someone gets indicted or arrested. It is just slow, grinding, institutional collapse. And it matters way more than any one trial or any one case because it is about what happens when the people who are supposed to be the guardrails of the system just give up and leave. So, let us actually break down what these prosecutors in Minnesota were being told to do, because this is where the story gets really interesting. And this is where you start to see the pattern. The ICE shooting case was serious. An Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent shot Renee Good. She died. That is the fact. Normally, when an ICE agent shoots someone, there is an investigation. There are potential federal charges. There is accountability. That is how it is supposed to work. The prosecutors in Minnesota were probably gearing up to look at whether that shooting was justified or whether it was abuse of power. That is their job. But instead, Trump's Justice Department headquarters called them up and basically said, forget about investigating the shooting. We want you to investigate the widow. And the prosecutors were like, wait, what? Why would we investigate the widow? What did she do? And the answer is, she did not do anything. But she was making noise about the shooting. She was talking about it publicly. So the idea from the top was to use federal prosecutors to intimidate her, to flip the victim's family into targets. And when these prosecutors said no, they were out. This is actually a textbook example of how misinformation gets created. Someone hears about this and they think, oh, Trump is firing federal prosecutors who do not comply. And that becomes the simplified version. But the actual story is that prosecutors are so concerned about being forced into unethical positions that they are resigning before they can be forced to do the thing that would get them fired. It is the same outcome, but it shows a different level of crisis. Because here is the thing, and this is what you need to understand about how government actually works. Once you are a federal prosecutor, you are supposed to be independent. You are supposed to have ethical obligations. You cannot just have the president call you up and say, go prosecute my enemies, and you do it. Or at least you are not supposed to. There are supposed to be rules. There is supposed to be a process. You are supposed to be able to say no. But that is exactly what is breaking down. Trump's administration has made it clear that if you work for the Justice Department and you do not go along with what they want, you are out. So prosecutors are choosing to leave rather than stick around and be forced into situations where they have to either comply with something unethical or get fired for refusing. And this is happening across the entire DOJ. The civil rights lawyers who resigned, they work in a division that is supposed to protect voting rights, that is supposed to investigate discrimination, that is supposed to go after police misconduct. And for decades, under both Republican and Democratic administrations, there was this understanding that the Civil Rights Division had a mission that went beyond whatever the president wanted on any given day. You were not supposed to use it as a political weapon. But under Trump, it is different. The message is clear. You either become part of the loyalty test or you get out. And people are choosing to get out. The fact that so many people are leaving so fast is actually sending a signal about how serious this is. When you have veteran attorneys with 30 years of experience willing to give up their pension, give up their salary, give up their job security, that is not because of some minor disagreement about policy. That is because they believe something fundamental is broken. Here's another thing that is important. Remember back in 2025 when there was the whole Eric Adams situation, the New York City mayor corruption case? This thing called the Thursday Night Massacre, where nearly 20 public integrity prosecutors were basically told either dismiss the case against Adams or you are done. And a bunch of them resigned rather than be forced into that position. This is the same pattern, different case, same strategy. Trump's administration is not just trying to change what the Justice Department does. They are trying to change what kind of people work there. They want loyalty above all. They want prosecutors who will do whatever the president asks without question. And the career professionals who believe in an independent Justice Department are choosing to leave rather than become that. But here is where it gets really wild. The message this sends to remaining DOJ staff is clear. If you want to keep your job, you need to get with the program. You need to be willing to investigate the enemies the president tells you to investigate. You need to be willing to defend policies that you might not think are legal. You need to put Trump's interests above your professional ethics. And that is creating this weird scenario where Trump is winning in one sense. He is getting a Justice Department full of loyalists, but he is also losing in another sense, because all the people with actual expertise and experience are walking out the door. So he gets a Justice Department that will do whatever he wants, but it is staffed by people who do not actually know how to do the job. That is the trade-off nobody talks about. The civil rights attorneys who left are being replaced by people with no civil rights experience. The prosecutors who understood criminal procedure and evidence are being replaced by, who knows, political appointees probably. And that matters because prosecuting cases is actually really hard. You need people who know what they are doing. You cannot just have a political operative show up and suddenly be competent at federal prosecution. This is the institutional hollowing out that everyone warned about, and it is not happening secretly. It is happening in the open. Over 230 DOJ employees were fired in 2025 alone, often, according to sources, because they worked on cases Trump did not like or because they had in the past criticized him. 2/3 of the unit defending Trump policies in court quit because they were being asked to make arguments they thought were legally indefensible. The Civil Rights Division lost 75% of its attorneys. That is not attrition. That is systematic. And the thing that is driving Trump crazy is that he cannot spin this into a positive story. He cannot say, I cleaned house and got rid of the bad guys, because the people leaving are the ones who say, we left because we were being asked to do unethical things. They are not being pushed out with their tails between their legs. They are walking out and publicly saying why. They are signing letters. They are talking to journalists. They are making noise. What is actually happening here is important for understanding not just the DOJ, but what is going on with rule of law in this country right now. Point one, Trump wants a loyalty test, not a Justice Department. This is the core thing. Trump is not trying to run the Justice Department the way presidents are supposed to run it. He is not trying to enforce laws. He is trying to build a personal legal apparatus, a machine that will do whatever he asks. Investigate who he tells you to investigate, prosecute who he tells you to prosecute, and not investigate and not prosecute whoever he tells you not to touch. And that is actually a big deal because the Justice Department is supposed to be different. It is supposed to be independent. The idea is that the rule of law matters more than any one person's power. But when prosecutors start walking out en masse because they are being asked to violate that independence, you are seeing the system under stress. Trump is not unique in wanting power. All presidents want power. The difference is that other presidents have generally accepted that there are supposed to be guardrails. There is supposed to be a process. You are not supposed to just order people to investigate your enemies. But Trump sees those guardrails as obstacles. He sees people saying no as disloyalty, and he is systematically removing anyone who represents that kind of institutional independence. Point two, this creates chaos inside government. People do not understand how much institutional knowledge matters inside government. When you have people with 30 years of experience, they know how things are supposed to work. They know the ethical lines. They know which arguments will hold up in court and which ones will not. And when those people leave, you lose that knowledge. So what happens? You get a Justice Department that becomes less competent, less effective, more likely to make mistakes, more likely to have cases thrown out by judges, more likely to be seen as political rather than professional. And this has real consequences. It means that cases Trump's administration brings could fall apart. It means civil rights enforcement breaks down. It means the whole system starts to corrode. And it is not because Trump is evil or anything. It is just because institutions need people who believe in the institution to function properly. When everyone left as a loyalist, the institution stops being an institution. It becomes a tool. And tools break eventually because nobody is there to fix them. Point three, this is about power and accountability. Here is what this really comes down to. Trump is testing whether he can have a Justice Department that answers only to him. The prosecutors who are resigning are saying that is not okay. They are saying there is supposed to be something bigger than that. There is supposed to be law. There is supposed to be ethics. There is supposed to be a process. And right now, it looks like Trump is winning because he is getting his Justice Department. But the price he is paying is that nobody with actual integrity wants to work there anymore. He is getting loyalty, but he is losing competence. He is getting control, but he is losing credibility. And that matters for elections. Trump says his whole thing is law and order. He says he is tough on crime. He says he is going to prosecute the real criminals. But if your Justice Department is so hollowed out that nobody respects it, how can you actually claim to be about law and order? If people see it as just Trump's personal legal weapon, then it is not justice. It is just power. Point 4. This pattern keeps repeating. This is important. This has happened multiple times already. The Thursday night massacre with the Eric Adams case, the mass resignations from the Civil Rights Division, the exodus from the unit defending Trump policies, the firings of over 230 DOJ employees. This is not a one-time thing. This is systematic. This is intentional. And every single time it happens, the same justification from Trump's people is heard. We are cleaning out the deep state. We are getting rid of people who are opposed to the president. We are making the government work. But what is actually happening is that anyone who might say no, anyone who might have professional ethics, anyone who might put law above loyalty is being removed. And that is why this story matters right now, because January 2026 is when the pattern can really be seen. It is not something that happened way back. It is happening now. Prosecutors resigning days ago, letters from former employees circulating just weeks ago. The system is actively breaking under the weight of this pressure. So here is the bottom line. Trump is enraged because he is realizing that even though he has the power to force people out, he cannot force people to stay if they do not want to. He can fire people. He can create a hostile environment. He can make demands, but he cannot make career professionals who care about the law want to work for him. And that is driving him crazy because he is used to being able to bend institutions to his will. But the Justice Department is built around the idea that some things are bigger than any one person. Some things are supposed to be independent, and when you try to destroy that independence, people leave. And when the people leave, the institution falls apart. The prosecutors walking out are not the bad guys in this story. They are actually the people trying to hold the line. They are saying that there are still ethical rules. There are still standards. You cannot just investigate the widow of a shooting victim because the president wants you to. You cannot just abandon civil rights enforcement because the administration does not want it. You cannot just become a tool of personal power. But they are losing. They are losing because there are not enough of them, because the system that was supposed to protect them is not protecting them. And because Trump has made it clear that loyalty is the only thing that matters. So what happens next? More people leave. The Justice Department becomes even more hollowed out, less competent, less respected, less able to do its actual job, which is exactly what happens when you decide that loyalty matters more than the institution. And that is the story, not some dramatic coup attempt or some shocking scandal. Just the slow, grinding collapse of professional ethics because the top guy decided that loyalty was more important and people choosing to leave rather than be part of it. That is what real institutional crisis looks like. What is unfolding within the Justice Department is a clear manifestation of a civilizational pattern, the degradation of public institutions under the relentless assault of personalized power. We are witnessing a systematic hollowing out, a deliberate replacement of professional competence with unyielding loyalty, a phenomenon not new to history. The resignations of veteran prosecutors, civil rights attorneys, and DOJ staff are not mere individual acts of protest. They are seismic tremors indicating the collapse of foundational guardrails. When experienced legal professionals, some with decades of service, choose to abandon their careers, pensions, and job security, it signals a profound ethical breach, a demand for allegiance that transcends lawful conduct. The explicit directive to investigate the widow of a shooting victim, rather than the shooting itself, turns the victim's family into targets, revealing a perversion of justice. This is not about enforcing law. It is about wielding the law as a weapon against perceived enemies and protecting allies. The Justice Department, an institution designed to stand independent, is being refashioned into a personal legal apparatus, a tool for a president's political ends. Such a transformation recalls the late Roman Republic, where strongmen like Marius, Sulla, and later Caesar increasingly bent legal and political structures to their personal will.